Okay, so what was the question? What were the causes of the revolt against Uthman and what charges were made against him? We're not discussing that right now. Can Muslims today learn lessons? So we're supposed to learn a lesson from the martyrdom of Uthman. Give reasons for your answer. In other words, the lessons that I am deducting, I must have a good reason for it, right? Okay, so discard nepotism. What can we learn from the martyrdom of Hazrat Uthman is that if we are in a position in which we are showing nepotism, we are displaying nepotism. You know, nepotism is one of the major reasons why people start hating their leaders or start hating the people in authority. Because, you know, even in schools, if you're a principal or if you're a teacher, you know, there's favoritism takes place. As you know, there are some colleagues, some teachers that the principal loves and she's only focused with them and she lets them get away with murder. And likewise, there are some teachers who start favoring just one child or two children from the class and they can get away with anything. So if there is any type of, you know, biasness, or if you're preferring your family members over others, then it should be discarded, because it builds resentment amongst the community, amongst your, you know, the public, if you are holding a public office, that is government office. Eligibility. What else do we learn? That when a person appoints somebody, suppose he did appoint his governors, then eligibility, he should have checked the eligibility of the governors. If they were eligible to work there, then they would have gained the trust of you know, the public. It's because the person is not eligible, that's why they don't gain popularity amongst the public. We can see this in Pakistan even nowadays. You can easily understand how people have been brought to the government, and the public, they're least interested with the people who are running the government or local bodies nowadays. They're least interested, and that's what that creates more resentment against a person, because some people are not brought to the government based on their eligibility. They're brought to the government based on favoritism. What else can we learn? That Hazrat Uthman, he stuck up for justice. The reason why, like a person could say, why didn't he just step off? Once one of my students asked me, why didn't he just abdicate why did he have to die? I go, abdicating, stepping down from his office meant that he was agreeing to every single thing that they are blaming him of, and especially that forged letter. If he would have stepped down, that meant that, okay, he was the one who sent that forged letter. He was the one who, you know, was using wealth wrongly. That's why he's stepping down. So he stood up and he remained steadfast for justice, basically. And then can you see, I've got sedition. I've got sedition here. Sedition means that when you are within an institution, people are made to, you know, propaganda is made against the leader of that institution. It could be the leader of the army, it could be the leader of a nation. If you go against your prime minister or your president, and you are, you know, also doing spreading propaganda within the public, that means creating sedition, so that everybody goes against whoever is in charge, basically. So he should have checked for this sedition that was taking place. If, you know, 13 years of ruling one place is a lot of years, basically. And the sedition most probably didn't just start in one day. It takes years for this to occur. So that should have been checked. And we should always, leaders today, Muslims today, should also check that is something like this happening within the society. And then what else do we learn? We learn that I've written in the pointer, avoid violence. He wanted to avoid violence. That's why when Hazrat Ali said, okay, do you want me to bring in the Muslim army? The army is ready. We can easily, you know, it was very easy for the Muslim army to drive out the rebels from Medina. But he wanted, Hazrat Uthman wanted to avoid violence. He said, no, I am not going to shed blood in Medina just for me. He didn't want like 100 of people losing their lives just for one person, his own life. In other words, he thought that his life does not matter as much as 500 people's lives matter, right? So he wanted to avoid violence. Whereas today, if you look around in our society, even in Pakistan, when people are coming up against the government, or they oppose it, or they are, they take rallies out, what happens? They are dealt with violence. That is no way to deal with public, basically. You're not supposed to deal with public that way. If you do, what happens is when you do become violent with the public, that is when they go wild and it turns into a mob rather than a rally. Leader protection. If you can see, I've got leader protection there. What can we learn? That no matter what, the leader should have been protected properly. And some people could say that, yes, the army should have been brought in at that time and they should have protected him, take him to a different location, try and save him. Like we just, in the recent Iran attack, the Ayatollah Khamenei was taken to some place where he could not be, attacked because, I don't know if you know, people were trying to assassinate him. And not just, it was exactly the same as at that time they had in Iran, there were many Jewish spies that were spying for Israel. And the people who bombed, the initial bombing in Iran happened within Iran by these Jewish spies, basically. And I don't know if it's true. It was mentioned that Ahmadinejad, the old president of Iran, was also assassinated in his home. Many people were assassinated in their homes, right? By gunpoint. So what Iran did, they changed the position of their leader where he's usually staying. That's why they couldn't find him, or he would have been killed, right? So what do we learn by all of this? That your leader should be protected. Hazrat Uthman could have been escorted to some other place. Somebody could have taken them into their own home, without anybody knowing or something. But Uthman stayed steadfast. Some people may say that it was stubbornness or he shouldn't have done that. But then he was willing. Remember, he spent his life willing to give up his life for the sake of Islam. So he was willing to give up his life just to the sake of, no bloodshed in Medina. And of course, nobody ever imagined it would get so nasty that they would kill him. And his age at that time is like, he was 83. He was near to 83 to 85 years old. Now, as students, like our Dado at home, she's 85 years old. And an 85 years old is a very fragile person. They don't have much, strength within them. And imagine a whole load of youth in the form of rebels come and they attack him and kill him. So there's a lot to learn from that. Imagine, so the most worst thing is like how can, the rebels get up and just kill an 80 and 85 years old. They could have brought him to justice. They could have, levied a case again. Okay, many solutions could have occurred, but, history is tragic. If you go through Islamic history, it's very tragic. Karbala happened. So many things in history has happened that naturally are not acceptable. I hope I've answered the question. Okay, I had 2 slides for this. I didn't even know. Okay, I couldn't remember. Islamic sanctity. What was the Islamic sanctity? That he wanted to maintain the sanctity of Medina. He did not use force. That is the one thing that we can learn, that he did not use force at the time of the rebels coming in. It aggravates the matter, basically. And then I've got address matters within time. Some matters, when you're in governance, some matters should be addressed within time. When we let, matters that are harming the public, that are sensitive to the public, when we let them go for too long, then what happens? Resentment increases, hatred increases. And the more these feelings increase, the more fatal it's going to be. Then I've got root cause. Hazrat Uthman and his companions should have tried to get to the root cause. And what was the root cause? They could have understood that Abdullah bin Sabah, it was a conspiracy, it was a Jewish conspiracy to try and create discord, and they ended up being successful. And then again, I've got conspiracy there. It was a total Jewish conspiracy, and they have been successful right up till now.